Before I start this video, I want to make a quick note. In early February, there were a few articles talking about the Sydney Metro Western Sydney Airport line being delayed until around April 2027, no longer opening with the airport as initially planned. While I am ashamed to see this happen again when it comes to Sydney Metro projects, I am hopeful that what I and many other transport enthusiasts and planners discuss can assist the future government with looking into metro extension proposals as soon as is feasible, and allow for more frequent metro lines and extensions to be built over the next 30 to 50 years. With the opening of the Sydney Metro Western Sydney Airport line planned to open in 2027, many people have been curious to know what the plans are once the shuttle line is in operation. The Australian government has been clear about a general timeline of the full extension proposals. However, I don't entirely agree with how long it takes nor the amount of stations chosen, primarily due to the urban sprawl that has occurred as a result of the housing crisis and many other economic factors. It is unclear as to the exact details of the extensions since the shuttle line is yet to be operational, but I believe it's a good idea to look at it now before the shuttle line opens so we can get a better idea of what should be done to make this line as impactful as possible for those living in the far reaches of southwest and northwestern Sydney. I'm Sen, and welcome to a discussion on the issues that are likely to come as a result of this line's extensions. Well, it's been a moment, but I am finally back to filming more content, and what better than starting to film in places like the Northwest, which is something interesting. When I actually went to Filmed Metro Month for the Sydney Metro City, one hut was right there on that lift. So there you go, there's a little bit of just extra stuff you get to know. Back to the video. Looking at the Sydney Metro Planning for Future Extensions website, we can see a vague idea of this line being extended north towards Tallawong via Schofields and southerly towards Macarthur via Oran Park. While I love the idea of connecting the north and south edges of Sydney together, especially due to the lengthy and painful journey on public transit this route is currently, I believe the gaps on this line are a big issue for commuters around this region to use and access easily, just as this is mirrored in the proposals for Sydney Metro West from Parramatta to Hunter Street. On the north side, we have a vague plan to extend to Tallawong from St Mary's by building the line through Marsden Park to Schofield and then closing the 3-kilometre gap between Schofields and Tallawong. This would connect the Western Sydney Airport Metro line up to the M1, allowing commuters along the entirety of the line from Bankstown all the way to the suburbs in the Hill District to access the new airport. On the south side, we have planned stations at Bringelly, Narellan and Oran Park, before linking with the T8 Airport and South line at Macarthur. While this definitely is a good plan as of currently, the station gaps are quite big compared to most metro lines around the world or even suburban lines in Sydney. Between Oran Park and Narellan is 6 kilometres, and Narellan to Macarthur is 6.5 kilometres. For those who know about Cherrybrook to Epping being about 6 kilometres, and the missed potential the M1 line had if they had added a station in nearby suburbs such as West Pennant Hills, or even potentially a station slightly north of Carlingford, which would have assisted with the new light rail that opened recently in Parramatta, it may have led to even more passengers being willing to use Sydney's public transit rather than relying on cars or even buses. I'm going to be primarily looking at the southerly extension down towards Macarthur, since this area is in major need of a heavy rail line due to many factors, such as the excessive amount of buses funneling into Campbelltown, and the lengthy journey commuters from Oran Park, for example, have to do to continue their journey into and around Sydney. Looking at the two currently selected areas for the southern extension of the Airport Metro line, we are able to see that both Oran Park and Narellan have shopping centres nearby to their stops, which is a great way to boost commuter usage as well as service any neighbouring suburbs such as Narellan Vale and Camden, even if it does require a short bus trip. The idea of putting shopping centres near train or metro stations isn't new. Hurstville and Parramatta are great examples of allowing commuters to access the Sydney Trains network while also having built-in shopping centres integrated into the station. There are also metro stations that do this, such as Castle Hill and Rouse Hill, which I will be looking a bit more into as a good example for what it could do to Oran Park and Narellan due to their proximity to the city being fairly far. Now at Rouse Hill, the station services the surrounding shopping and housing precinct. I won't be analysing the stations since that isn't the point of today's video, but if you want to deep dive into the stations on the Sydney Metro Northwest, go check out Building Beautifully's video on it. It's been a big inspiration for planning this video. When getting off the station, we are able to notice a shopping centre closely in the distance from the lowest level. It is less than a 5-minute walk from the station and has so many facilities, from chemists to grocery stores, recreation and dining, and so much more. The metro and shopping centre also blends in with the area, making it a good overall fit for the suburbs living near the edge of Sydney. The housing area is also very nice, giving off a similar feel to suburbs in the far southwest past Campbelltown. There are also bits of farmland still standing despite the urban sprawl that has taken place even further than Rouse Hill to suburbs such as Box Hill and Marsden Park, which are yet to have a metro station. However, there are some proposals that may eventuate. I gotta say, I wasn't surprised how big this shopping centre actually was. Like, I've been here a few times and I'm like, yeah, it's a pretty cool shopping centre. But like, I think I've been walking for maybe like 5 to 10 minutes at the least. And like, now I'm finally at the end of it. I'm like, wow, this is insane. This is insane how cool this area is. Sometimes it actually makes me envious. Like, I wish like in my area that we had stuff like this. We don't have how cool this stuff is. It's just like a bunch of houses and like shops scattered. That's it. So different. Like, this is why I wish the Southwest got as good as what the Northwest could be, as quick as it can, rather than waiting 20-30 years as the proposals say, which is just disgusting. Sadly, nothing is confirmed as of currently, and it will be at least the late 2030s or early 2040s before these suburbs are properly serviced, which is another video I'll have to talk on at a later point. I gotta say as well, you don't see a lot of this sort of stuff very often in my area. This area is really impressive for what it has, and of course it has the metro, which added benefit just makes it much cooler and better. Also, this episode was meant to be, on the metro extension in the south, and now I've just got like lost in, I'm just in Rouse Hill, just exploring around for a bit, which I didn't really expect this to be part of the video, but I guess this is kind of what it is. I genuinely wish there was some sort of link between MacArthur and, let's say, Tallawong, so you can get to these sort of places much easier. That'd be incredible. But of course, that's not planned to be happening for quite a long while, sadly. I believe they were saying something about like the 2040s is when the Oran Park link to St. Mary's is going to be. I don't know if that means that the Tallawong thing will be done, I'm not sure. At least the Bringelly through Oran Park towards MacArthur will not be done until in the 2040s, which again, really bad decision. I think they should be getting on much sooner. Close to maybe like the late 2030s is a good idea, because it does take time to build this stuff, obviously, but it shouldn't be taking 20 years from 2025, 2026, maybe even 27, just to have to say, okay, fine, we'll build it now, especially because areas like Narell and Oran Park, they really need this badly, and yet they don't have it. I also wanted to check out Castle Hill and get multiple perspectives on how different suburbs with metro stations integrate the metro into the housing and shopping precinct. Getting off the metro and heading towards the shopping centre, there has been a pedestrian link built to assist commuters with accessing all sorts of facilities someone in the area might need. This is an incredible way to integrate a metro station into a suburb shopping precinct, but also towards the housing areas too. It's cool that they actually have this link that goes between the metro station just behind me and the shopping centre right in front of me. Like, that's awesome. Apparently before, this used to be a car park from sources I've heard, which again, pretty interesting that before the metro was even a thing, that they had to put cars and stuff here. But with the introduction of the metro going through here, they decided to put this link. I think that's awesome. Granted, the suburb of Castle Hill is quite large, and while 2 metro stations is great for servicing this area, not every resident will be super close to take advantage of it. But I honestly think this is a good comparison for suburbs that surround Narell and Oran Park, not being the suggested 800 meter range that can make using the station so much easier. Something I'm noticing a lot different from Rouse Hill while I'm in Castle Hill is you've got like roads going and obviously intersections. So I'm actually just outside of the shopping centre to see the high rises and stuff. But I've been standing here for at least a minute already, and that was not the case in Rouse Hill. Now I get it a little bit closer to the city, so it is more likely to have a bit more traction of the cars and stuff going through, but still, like, it's kind of crazy that there's a shopping centre right there. I'm not kidding you, I'm on the opposite side of the road to the shopping centre, and it's just taking forever. So definitely a different experience. I personally believe both of these stations do it very well with integrating their metro stations into these suburb surroundings. And while not every station on the M1 line does this perfectly, it is good to see what could be possible for future stations proposed by the government. Lastly, I want to look at a unique anomaly in the southwest of Sydney, that being the suburb of Leppington and its subsequent station. This suburb is said to once be a region of Sydney focused on farming and agriculture, though it seems many of these businesses either no longer exist or are hard to find online. However, with urban sprawl occurring in both the northwest and southwest of Sydney, Leppington has now become a residential area for those attempting to find somewhere affordable to live, even if that is a little bit hard in the current economic climate. this station is somewhat located in the middle of nowhere, at least when it comes to connecting to housing estates, shopping facilities, and more. However, it's evident that this station is still important for commuters living in and nearby to Leppington, such as Denham Court, Austral, Hoxton Park, Bringelly, and Rossmore. With these suburbs in mind, having rail connections in suburbs such as Bringelly and Rossmore and connecting up towards the airport would allow these areas to have access to the rail network and to densify these areas in the future when more development occurs from the airport's opening and the development of Bradfield, a suburb on the outskirts of the Western Sydney airport. As I may or may not have explained, Leppington is a really weird anomaly. Just the fact that, while yes, there is a station here, it's a really unique suburb in the southwest where there's kind of almost nothing, and in the next film shot that you'll realize what I mean by that point, because it's really unusual why this station even exists in the first place and why it feels like there's almost nothing here. So I'm here currently at the backside here of the shopping centre closest to Leppington station, and you're probably wondering where it is, and you'll notice it's nowhere in sight. Why could that be? Well, fittingly, it's not really explained or answered why this is. This was just built here because it's the closest place, land-wise I suppose, to where Leppington Station is, which is really weird. Again, it's another one of those anomalies that I do not understand why this was built here and not maybe 10 minutes over that way, because that is where this is being built. Again, it's a 15-minute walk from here all the way over to the station, which is all the way in that direction. You walk all the way around and you get there. So I start to realize why this is a big issue when it comes to building stations, not only in the southwest, but close to facilities. If you want to allow people to actually use the facilities, you've got to build them close to where stations or where people live. And again, there are no houses around here really. There's like a few farms over there. There's a few houses at the very end over there, but that is it. There is close to nothing. This shopping centre is a solid 15-minute walk, which I think I've done once or twice at most, and I'm never doing that again. Not only should we be building stations, we should be actually densifying around the stations, and knowing that Leppington, of all places, is basically the middle of nowhere, quite a unique anomaly. It's no wonder that we have a bunch of things just scattered. And worst of all, if you zoom in there, you can see all those houses all the way over there, and yet so far from a station. And worst of all, they probably cost upwards of $800,000 plus. Building stations between Bradfield and Leppington will allow for north-south connectivity between Leppington and St Mary's, as well as nearby suburbs such as Penrith, Kingswood, and Mount Druitt. While Leppington currently is a station located in a unique part of the southwest, it will hopefully be an impactful station which could lead to more development in the suburb and surrounding parts of southwestern Sydney. What all of these stations mentioned above have is bus interchanges, and Oran Park and Narellan are no exceptions to this. Oran Park has multiple bus routes going through or terminating at the shopping centre in the middle of Oran Park, such as the 840, 896, and 858, which helps to allow commuters in the area to get home, whether from Campbelltown, Narellan, or even Leppington, even if the schedule isn't the best currently. Some buses sadly can be upwards of every hour off peak, which is pretty bad. Something that I want to talk about while I'm here in Oran Park. First of all, this right here, like while I'm walking past, is planned to be where the metro station will be in the event that they actually do build it, and hopefully at a reasonable year, not the 20 plus years that they say they're like, oh yeah, we'll do it at 2047. Nah, shouldn't be doing that. That's the whole reason of this video, to actually, hopefully allow for people to think, oh, this is a good idea, we should be building it. Now this is on the left side here. If you actually come to the right side, you can see this massive shopping center. But what's fascinating to me is that all of this stuff is very new. I remember many years ago when this area was very new, wasn't really much, it was just a little estate, a small shopping center. A lot of this didn't exist. There was like the main shopping center part that a lot of people know who live here. That's kind of all there was here. A lot of this area has really just developed, seems to be slowly densifying for the southwest, which isn't a lot, obviously, because, it's really far out from where Sydney is, but it's definitely something rather than nothing, and I at least respect the effort to at least put that into action. That's really good. Now moving to Narellan, it is a major hub for many bus routes, as well as school buses, which means school kids and general commuters are getting off and heading towards Narellan Town Centre, and the surrounding outskirts of Narellan, whether that be for work, shopping, or simply to interchange to other areas of the southwest. An example of this is going from Oran Park to Camden, which requires taking either the 896 or 850 bus route from Oran Park Shopping Centre, getting off at Narellan Town Centre, and changing to either the 895 or 890C bus to head towards Elderslie and Camden. Not only does this make the journey longer than necessary, but having to wait for 2 buses could make the journey much longer and inconvenient than driving, which ultimately is an issue in the southwest due to poor public transport timetables. Having a metro line extend from Bradfield through Oran Park and Narellan and onto MacArthur allows for the routes to become feeder buses to the metro stops and makes multiple bus transfers a thing of the past. It also makes getting between these areas much easier and quicker, as currently the 896 bus route can take upwards of 25 minutes between Oran Park and Narellan. So as I said, Narellan is a big bus interchange when it comes to all sorts of areas. You know, you've got Camden down that way, behind me you've got Leppington, you've got the other areas of Narellan bound, Mount Annan, Campbelltown, Oran Park, Harrington Park. There's probably a few more I even missed right there, but this area is just massive. It's filled with tons of buses that go in and out of it. So, you know, it makes sense why having a metro here would actually be very beneficial to actually allow for a lot of these buses, just as I say, one shows up, that to allow it to sort of limit the amount of buses coming through here, especially this intersection. Clogs up very much in peak hours. I'd say maybe like 2 to 4 p.m. at least I've seen. Definitely clogs up going towards there. So that is a big issue currently, and I think having the metro would make that much, much easier. Now there are a few points of where the buses are. You've got one down there, one over here, and you've got one on the side of the shopping centre. Now you'll actually notice that the shopping centre is actually pretty big, and just like Oran Park, it used to not be this size. The current side that I'm walking on right now was actually the only part that existed pretty much. This overpass here along the main road here, as well as this other side here with all the banks and everything, this is relatively new when it comes to Narellan, especially because this area has been around for a decent while. So with that being said, it really goes to show that a lot of these southwestern areas have recently started developing more, building more stuff around here, and honestly just allowing residents around or even close by, I'd say, in walking distance to, use the facilities here. We've got all sorts of food shops, as you can see out here, the banks, there's pharmaceuticals, there's so much here. And again, it makes sense why a lot of people use these facilities. They're here, they're close by, and knowing that the other shopping centers are either Mount Annan, which is a few kilometers, Oran Park, and of course, you've got Campbelltown, which is quite far away. It makes sense why we've got this shopping center here. And honestly, I'm happy we do. It's really, really cool. Finally, I want to talk about 2 nearby suburbs that may get a metro station when the extension occurs, and these are Harrington Park and Mount Annan. These areas would be great additions between the currently proposed stations I have talked about above, as it would reduce the distance between stations from 6 kilometers to around 3 kilometers and service both the housing and shopping precincts. The only limiting factor stopping these 2 suburbs from getting stations is the lack of available land, making it unlikely that these areas will be served by Sydney Metro. Well, as some of you may or may not know, this episode is actually a 2-parter. So this episode is actually going to be continuing from the next episode, where we are going to actually be heading to Port Kembla, because we're going to be talking about a new line, and crazy enough, there's my train. So anyway, hope you guys join me on this journey all the way down the coast for the next part of this episode. Hopefully this video helped to shine light on the issues with the current Sydney Metro, Western Sydney Airport line, and can assist by allowing the government to continue working to enhance the rail network to a new futuristic age. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.